Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Podcast, episode 22. This is a special local election edition. Hopefully, most of you will have voted by now. If you're not, please go out to the polls and do so. We'll talk a little bit more about our voting choices later. This is Scotland's number one anti-nationalist podcast going out live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And I'm here tonight with my co-hosts, David Griffiths and Niall Fraser.
Good evening, everyone.
So what do you think we're going to be talking about tonight, David?
Tonight, I will be talking about the UK press and their infuriating habit of fanning the flames of Scottish independence.
And tonight, I'll be covering today's election.
Well, that's good. And also, I'll talk about Nicola Sturgeon's lies upon lies upon lies, and none of them very sweet, all pretty bitter. So that's going to come up just after our title. So give me a second, and here we go. Well, here we are back again. And as usual, we always start the show with a shout out to our donors who made this podcast possible by supporting a crowdfund and who continue to donate to the podcast to keep it going. If you like what you see and if it keeps you entertained in some way, then please do go to our website and make a donation. It's very straightforward. Just hit the button and any amount, small or big or small, doesn't make any difference to us. But it does make a difference to us, I should say. It doesn't, but everything is good and will be used for that. Also, like to thank our partners at UK Union Voice and United Against Separation.
And of course, you can also watch on Twitter and on YouTube, from where you can subscribe to the Majority.
Yes, and please do like, share, comment. You can extend the reach of this podcast at the click of a button. Great comments get read in the show. Keep them short, though. No more essays, and we can get as many in as we can. Thank you.
Right. Also, I see already the comments are beginning to flow in, and it's please do make as many as you can. Tonight is a big one because of the election, and it'll be quite interesting to see how you voted and your opinions on that. A little bit of an update on our billboard campaign. As you know, we ran a crowdfund to put up SNP Council's Our Rubbish billboards, and we raised £4,400, and that went pretty well. The last billboards, I think they finished yesterday in Aberdeen. So it was very successful all round. So big thank you to everyone who donated, supported, shared, did whatever you could. Everything helps. It was very good. I seem to have lost my place. Is it you, Niall?
Yes, I'll be talking about the Scottish Council elections today. Yes.
And Dave, oh yes, that's right. Okay, so let's move on to that in a second.
Okay.
Right now, you're up.
So today is polling day, and I hope that you've already cast your vote. And all the viewers, you might be able to skedaddle out and still manage to get your vote cast before the 10 p.m. deadline. But first, I wanted to ask you, the viewers, who do you think has run the best election campaign this year? Is it Scots Tories? Is it Scots Labour? Is it the Lib Dems? Or is it any other party that you feel has run the best campaign? And please do tell us in the comments. And because we do love to have fun on this podcast, I want you, the viewers, to comment on your favourite election gaffes, if you can remember any. Well, there's been lots, so please get them in. So first off, Mark, David, I wanted to ask you, I'll pose you the same question, I'll pose the viewers. Who do you think has ran the best campaign this year?
Well,
Mark, you go first if you don't
think
mind.
it's a difficult question, really. It's a bit dispiriting campaigns all round, I think. It reminds me of that Henry Kissinger quote, can't they all lose? It feels a bit like that. It's at the time when we do need strong leadership, both in Scotland and the UK, it seems all the main parties are just failing in that, and particularly in Scotland. We're going to talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the show. I think one thing, though, I think we need to be careful of, especially us. The three of us kind of live in social media to some extent. I think we have to be careful that when what we see in social media isn't the full story. And from what we've been hearing from people like Labour councillor Malcolm Cunning, who came to our meetup, and some other friends of the show we've been talking to, that the story on the doorstep might be quite different, especially for Labour candidates going around the doors, getting a very good reception. Mm-hmm. So we can only hope that months of negative publicity against the SNP and in Glasgow will have some effect. I mean, what do you think, David?
Yeah, my view of the effectiveness of the campaigns is really varied. I think Labour have run a pretty adequate campaign. I don't mean that to be dismissive. I think they've done okay. I think the SNP have done their usual nonsense, their PR job, and who knows how many people that will fool into voting for them. Been very disappointed, both by the Liberal Democrats, mainly because they refuse to engage with us at all, uniquely among the big pro-UK parties. And latterly, of course, the Conservatives. I mean, I think we all agree that the Conservative campaign has been pretty woeful, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot anecdotally that people are saying, oh yeah, I know people who were going to be SNP but are now voting Conservative or now voting Labour, mainly the latter. And that's great. If that's happening, terrific. But there are an awful lot of SNP voters out there. And my concern is they're coming from a pretty low base in terms of the vote share they got 5 years ago. It won't take that much. Even if the SNP vote falls in line with current polling trends, then the SNP are almost certain to win more votes and gain more seats. And that's very, very disappointing, obviously, considering their record.
I mean, I liked Mark's point about the disconnect between the social media campaign and what people are talking about on the doors. So that we experienced this last year, David, in All for Unity, where it looked like we had an amazing social media campaign, but it just did not translate to votes.
Absolutely.
I think we have to be careful that that we're all in our own bubbles, I think, in some sense in social media, and it's difficult to break out and find out what other people are thinking, and it's especially difficult it's hard enough to find out what the UK parties are thinking, the main parties on our side are thinking, but to find out what people in SNP are actually thinking is a real challenge. So,
if anything at all, Mark.
Well, that's different. I mean, of course, their campaign is based on the idea of the cost of living crisis is caused by the Tories, and we hate Boris Johnson and all that. And how well does that really resonate with people when their potholes aren't being fixed and the bins aren't being emptied properly and the rats are taking over the city, that type of stuff as well. So it remains to be seen what's actually happening on the doorstep. I'm neither positive nor negative. I mean, what's your general feeling about that, David?
In terms of how it will go, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, my feeling is, no matter how badly the SNP is done, no matter how appalling their record is, and no matter how they've focused on anything but local issues, they still have the propensity, it seems, to get an awful lot of votes. I think the parties which have tried to focus on local issues have done the thing. But again, I'll talk a bit later about particularly the Conservatives and where I feel they've fallen down in terms of their approach. I think some of their pronouncements have been bizarre. I mean, almost David Lynch style. I mean, really bizarre, really odd. Whereas Labour, I think, of the three main parties, if you like to put it that way, I think they possibly resonated most with their voters and with maybe possibly new voters too. So, yeah, I think there have been. It wouldn't surprise me if Labour makes quite significant gains tonight. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I'm sorry to interrupt into your segment a little bit, but here's some numbers here come from Britain.
Oh.
Was this Britain Elect? Yes, and they have a big SNP minus 12 in this one. I think there's a Scottish part of that somewhere down here. Nope, I should have got that.
I think it's in the main graphic.
Oh, is it? Oh, is
Yeah.
it? Oh, yes, you're right. It's in
Oh,
here.
yes, in
How will
Scotland,
Britain
they're
vote?
saying Conservative lose, what, 83,
83.
and 87 gain for Labour. SNP lose 12. Well, that'd be nice, but I'm not sure about that. Well, we'll see.
We'll
But,
see
yeah,
how
I
reckon
can
there's
active
certainly.
definitely
polling is, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a case for Labour to make some gains. I think we've
No
been
doubt.
saying this
Yeah,
quite a bit
absolutely.
on the channel. Is that why would you vote for the SNP if they can't get independence and they can't
Yeah.
to get away from the Tories and they can't form a government to get away
Yeah.
from the Tories as well? And I think that fault line, as it were, will become more obvious as time goes on. It's not that clear at the moment because there's still so much hope from their side, or delusion maybe is a better word, for what's actually happening, for the possibility of a second referendum, which we think we all know is not going to happen.
Indeed.
You mentioned Boris there, Mark. I mean, you've seen in the last week, I mean, we talk about Boris being a real selling point for the SNP quite a lot on this podcast, but we've seen her lean directly into that this week. She's even been questioned about it. There was an article written that Boris is driving 4 out of 10 voters in Scotland to the SNP.
Wow.
I think that seems. I think my opinion that's not the case. I think that very few Tories are going to leave the Tory party, leave the Tory party because of Boris Johnson. If they were, they would have left before now because of Brexit and what have you, and all that type of stuff. I think that's simply red meat to her own followers. The whole party is based on this Tory hate, and Boris is the archetypal Tory that they hate Tony and whatever thing.
Whatever word they want to cast at that,
I think
the
that's what it is.
bogeyman.
Well,
yeah.
let's run through some scenarios. So let's run through the nightmare scenario first, right? We've got the SNP and the Greens make large gains. I think we can all agree it keeps the never-ending hamster wheel spinning, and it locks us into more of the same tired old identity politics. And it's, what's the likelihood of this nightmare scenario, gents? Toss me a percentage.
Large gains, I would say.
I'm not big on large gains.
I think they'll gain vote share. I think they'll gain. Will that necessarily translate into more seats? I suspect they will make moderate gains, the SNP, and the Greens little. Is my.
I mean, even if they make gains, what does that give them? They still can't get a referendum. So
it's true,
they can't say, "Oh, we've got a mandate because we've got more
in the local elections,
whatever." Maybe it gets some vote share, but it doesn't really mean that much. What does mean stuff is if Labour makes gains. That's really what this election.
Yes, that's going to be so. The not so nightmarish scenario where the SNP and the Greens, they don't budge, they maintain the status quo. It would maybe be seen as a minor victory on our side. As it's sort of going for like a cancer checkup, and the doctor says, your tumor hasn't increased in size, but it's not reduced in size. So it's a good sign, but at the same time, it's still very tentative.
We're getting a lot of good comments here from people, showing a lot of them on the screen. We read out some as well from time to time. So we like to see them. I mean, how do you think that things went? So, here we go. Here's Sean. I think Conservatives should focus on what they will do rather than anti-SNP. Well, of course, I think all the parties should be doing that. And that's something we are going to discuss at the end. It's an ongoing thing. Heavenly Malbec, you know that Sturgeon will claim a mandate. Come on.
Of course
they will. I mean, and it's a pertinent point, and one on which I will elaborate a little bit later, Mr. Heavenly Malbec. So look out for that. You're quite right.
I think it's a miss, but we kind of misgender people these days,
Gender you or assume your pronouns. I apologise.
It's
I'm sorry.
It's not Chardonnay, identifying as a Malbec.
The victory scenario for us would have to be the SNP and the Greens receiving heavy losses across the board, and especially in the strongholds like Glasgow, Dundee. That would be incredible to see the SNP get diminished. And it's hard not to see that actually happen in the likes of Glasgow and Dundee, considering the state of the actual cities themselves. Really, really.
Well, again, it's the same thing. we talked about this a lot. They want to be kings of the ashes. It doesn't matter. They can look at. They don't actually see all that stuff that we see. They don't see the potholes and all that type of stuff. All they see is independence is possible. That's what they see, and that blinds them to everything else going around them. That's why when the scales finally do drop, I think it's going to be quite shocking for them. And they go, oh, wait a minute, now I'm standing here in a pile of rubble, and I don't have independence, and I don't have functioning government. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, the victory scenario for us is obviously the SNP and the Greens making heavy losses. But with that comes, I mean, it's who's going to take those votes?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Labour? Is it going to be the Scottish Conservatives? Is it the Lib Dems? Who knows? But sadly, I do feel that this is the most unlikely scenario. I hope not.
Yes. I'm afraid you're right, Niall. That's not going to happen, I don't think. Both the Greens and the SNP incurring heavy losses, not a chance. I would say 0%.
Yeah, but perhaps, I mean, we have to see what if Glasgow falls. And that's not a certainty by any means at all. So if that happens, then that's a big loss. And if they don't make the kind of gains they think they would make, then that's an issue. Another thing, really, I suppose, to consider is how the media will play it in any case.
Yes.
With the media turning ever so slowly against Sturgeon, then perhaps even if Sturgeon they make gains, the media will go, well, we're on the Labour side now. We want them back. So it's going to be interesting to see not just what the result is, but the media reaction to it.
Definitely.
I would actually like to see some of the smaller parties, get some councillors elected. Parties like the Scottish Family Party. I mean, if the Scottish Family Party were to see anyone elected, I would see that as very encouraging sign that the population in general are sort of willing to vote out with the red, blue, yellow stable of standard votes. So I think this potentially it's got a lot of information could come from this election. So it would be we will be digging deep into the data once we get it next week. I'm sure we are. So we'll detail this when we get the report. But as for now, I mean, I've cast my vote. The rest is up to you guys.
Indeed.
Yes,
I've cast mine for one of the smaller parties also, let me just say.
Please keep your comments coming in about which way you voted, and what that's going to be an ongoing theme throughout the show. Kenny Calder would ask, why has the general mood changed in a week? I wonder what that
elaborate
means.
on what you mean there, Kenny. Do you mean our mood? I think I've always been of the opinion that the while I want the SNP to do very badly, sadly I don't think they will, not yet. Mainly because we're getting pretty much more of the same from the main pro-UK parties. Labour less so. They've, as I said, I believe run quite a good campaign. But for the Conservatives, which I will touch upon later, I know I keep promising this, but I think they've run an extraordinarily campaign personally, and I think they're just saying the same cliches they said last year. And frankly, I think they've run out of ideas. So I'm just tempering my enthusiasm for the SNP sadly with the reality that sadly they probably won't. That's also
a great comment here from Leslie Lambert. I spoke to an SNP supporter. She knew nothing of the ferry debacle, the media losing SNP favour. Well, I mean, there should be everyone in Scotland should be aware of this ferry scandal. And it's almost criminal that not, the whole population doesn't know about this. And is this the sort of echo chambers meets party politics? Certain groups of people don't receive bad information about their side. And this is a problem in politics in general. But I mean, how do we break through the echo chambers to make a difference?
It's definitely a big challenge. We're talking about the ferry scandal. We will be mentioning that in just a few seconds.
Yes,
coming up later in the show, David's going to be talking about how the English media, or I should to be more specific, the London-based media, gets a distorted picture of what is going on in Scotland. And I'm going to, in a moment, just be talking about Sturgeon's lies. So many of them. We'll be back in a second. Now, where do we start? This
Where?
is the thing. Well, a segment on Sturgeon's lies could probably take up, a 24-hour news channel rather than just the 10 minutes or so we're going to give it. But we'll do our best. This week, Sturgeon lied while ferries died.
Yeah.
And we had this piece of news here by Jim McCall, who is the ex-owner of Ferguson Marine Shipyard. It was nationalised just before the Scottish independence referendum. And he had quite a shocking statement to say about what actually happened at the time. I'm going to put this up right now.
Under the timings of this announcement, you said the last time you were on the programme on March the 29th that you thought that this deal, this announcement had been made for political reasons.
Yes.
Nicola Sturgeon, the leader of the SNP and the First Minister, was on the programme yesterday. She said, had a different decision been taken, Ferguson's would almost certainly have closed and the 400 jobs of the 400 people employed there would have gone.
That's a lie. And at the time, there were 150 employed, not 400.
Yes.
I think she was a bit rattled in the interview and she mixed it up with the statement that they make about saving the yard.
It's very strong words to call it a lie. So are you saying...
Well, it's not true.
Are you saying that the yard could have survived without...
Yeah, it's quite a shocker, that, isn't it? Now, we have here a billionaire businessman basically saying that Nicola Sturgeon is a liar, not just and couching it in any terms, just straight up.
Yeah,
she's a liar. Yep. But this isn't the first time that Nicola Sturgeon has lied. What do you think, David? Can you think of any other times?
Well, the obvious other one is when she claimed that she had been found innocent, cleared of misleading Parliament, which wasn't the case at all. She was found guilty of misleading Parliament over the Alex Salmond thing, but what she was cleared of was a charge that she had broken the ministerial code. And she appeared on a TV show and said, "Oh no, I'm innocent," when she actually wasn't. And of course, the interviewers didn't know enough about it to be able to challenge her on that.
I think that's going to go to your point a little bit later there about do these commentators, London-based commentators, really have the finger on the pulse of what's going on?
That's right.
Or did Nicola Sturgeon tell the truth and loose women about misleading Parliament?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the Independent Commission said that she did mislead Parliament. Unfortunately, there was a vote of no confidence that didn't work. Because of various reasons, mainly because she has the support of the Greens, nationalist Greens. And at that time as well, that the whole thing was going on. We did a whole campaign based on "We don't believe you, Nicola." We ran ad vans around, and I don't have pictures of them right now, but we ran those around because people didn't believe what she was saying at the inquiry. She was, she couldn't recall, she couldn't remember, she didn't know what was going on in her own house. She didn't know that Alex Salmond was, touchy-feely with people, even though he was her mentor for so many years, and she'd spent so much personal time with him. She just didn't seem to know anything. And
although everyone else in Scotland knew fine well,
exactly.
Young people were being told. I remember, I've said this before, I think on the show, a lady I worked with in 2011, her daughter went to work over in Edinburgh and Holyrood, and she was told back then, don't be around Alex Salmond late at night. So she knew that, and she was just starting as an intern. 7 years later, Nicola Sturgeon had never heard any of these stories. Honestly, never heard the word. Who are you kidding, sweetheart? Come on. So, no, that's just clear by everyone.
What is it, a gremlin? Late at night, he just becomes a gremlin. What's going on?
Come on.
We actually called it on this podcast as well, just to go back to Jim McCall. We said at the time, well, are there actually 300 jobs there? Because the numbers have jumped around, if you've noticed. So originally it was we've spent all this money to save Ferguson's and the 300 jobs. And then the last week I'm hearing 400 jobs. Yeah. And then at the time we said there's no way 300 jobs are there. It was more closer to 150, which Jim McCall clearly agrees with and has said that she's lying about. So, the numbers are everywhere. We don't know what the actual number is. And, it just...
There's another point here as well. Now, there's another point. I mean, I think I've mentioned this in the show previously. I was contacted by a potential constituent when I was standing 18 months ago, and he said, "Look, I work in the shipyards. I've been approached by a recruiter, and he's offered me literally half the money that you're getting paid up in the yard further up the Clyde." And the suspicion is that a lot of the employees at Ferguson's now are actually Romanian who've been brought in specifically to work on this stuff, and they're completely unskilled or relatively unskilled. They've never worked on anything like this before. And I mean, however difficult a project is, it doesn't take 5 years from a ship being seaworthy enough to be launched, as in put in water, for it still not to be fixed. I mean, for that to be the case, your workforce has to be completely incapable. And I'm not suggesting in any way it's because of the country they're coming from, but the point was that they were paying these people buttons, knowing that local people, skilled people, wouldn't take these jobs. So it was as if they were just trying to spin this out and keep the yard going come what may. And again, we'll talk later about the latest ferry procurement order, which the Scottish Government has placed, and it's certainly not with Ferguson's. So it's a complete mess. And they keep saying, well, this new turnaround guy's made a difference, the new chief exec. Really? Well, when are the ships going to go? When are they going to be launched? Give us a date.
Well, I hope he's better than the last turnaround guy that was on £3,000 per day.
Yeah,
that's good work if you can get it, isn't it? Really. Hopefully, when this podcast becomes massive, then we can be all rolling in the £3,000 a day. Seems somewhat unlikely. It will become massive, but perhaps the money would be.
We need to get a government contract for that.
Oh yes, that's right. Nicola's going to hire us. To run disinformation or whatever. This was a campaign we did here for We Don't Believe You, Nicola.
Fantastic.
That was quite a nice sweet ad van running around Govan Hill saying that. It was a good one. That one went quite well as well. Okay, but so she didn't know anything about the ferries. She lied about the ferries. I mean, we still don't know who even signed the contract. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yes. And she lied. Well, she misled Parliament. And these are facts, not just our opinion. Yes. I mean, many things we could say are our actual opinion, but I think the biggest lie that's coming out, is that there's going to be a referendum in 2023.
Yeah,
I mean, we see this absolutely
lie.
Shocking headlines in the Heavenly Malway again. Shocking covers of the National. This is the National the other day. FM confident of yes win in 2023. Well, it's halfway through 2022. You already.
It's not happening, guys.
That's not the only one. There's another one. Oh yeah, here we go. Scotland on its way to India. This is what she wrote in the National today. It's this continuous beating of the donkey with a carrot, put a carrot in front and beat it, and beating a dead horse with a carrot in front of it that says independence. What I mean? You get me? You get the picture.
The National, the front pages are running parody at this point. I mean, how can people not see this? I mean, if you go back and look at the headlines, you'll laugh out loud. Indy's coming next week. We mean the next week. We mean the month after. Ongoing for years, on and on and on. It's outrageous. And I think I might compile a wee video showing you that.
Oh, I think you need to. Yeah, I think we need to get all those. I mean, what is this? What is the factual basis behind this? Scotland is on its way to India. There's no possibility of a second referendum. Even if there was there's a remote possibility it might go to the Supreme Court. Or even if there was one, it'd be boycotted, and it's just like it's a big mess ahead, and it's all this rah. We're going to be able to do this, and and any rational person looks at that and goes, "That's not even remotely possible at all."
Yeah,
really.
I will have to pick you up on someone on your segment, Mark. I mean, Sturgeon lied and ferries died. Well, I don't think the ferries were ever alive. That's the thing.
Right.
They were launched, but they were launched dead.
I think they've been stillborn, bless them.
Oh.
Well, I think we said that before. She had the face that sunk two ferries.
Face that couldn't launch a dinghy. Exactly.
So
maybe this whole thing about, oh yes, 2023, maybe this is sort of building up to say, I've tried every avenue. I promise you that I'll give you a referendum. I can't do it because of Tory lies and malfeasance. So I can't take you any further. I'm passing the baton on to somebody else. I'm out of here. And off she goes. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
I mean,
if
she'd been smarter, she'd probably do it earlier. But if she gets a half decent result this time, she still gives her another few months before she can get out. Because the faithful have to get, at some point, they have to have some sort of result. We talk about this a lot in the show. The last thing she wants is a hard stop, right? So the closer it gets to a hard stop, the harder it is. But yeah, I think you're right in the end, David. I think she can just say, those bad Tories stopped it. So what can you do? I'm off to work in the UN Women's Outreach Fund for Rwandan refugees who have come in through the channel and are traumatized by Boris Johnson's hair. That's the kind of role she's going for. So
she's a natural.
I think she'll do great in that position.
Yes, I think that's it. And if they don't have that position, they should certainly invent one like that for her. I'll just show this very last bit for the segment, which is Sturgeon considers challenge over indie legal advice. Yeah, right. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I mean, some question is whether it actually is any legal advice, at all. That's what happened with Alex Salmon.
Yeah, some comments coming in. Thank you, George Mcdonald. He loves the videos that I do. Thank you. Does anyone think Sturgeon has the cojones to run it in a referendum without an S30? I certainly don't.
She said all along that she wants a legal referendum. In fact, she just said that the other day, didn't she? And that's actually a good point, which brings me to this article by Tom Harris, which was in the Telegraph. Nicola Sturgeon has just admitted defeat. And by saying she wouldn't go ahead with a referendum that wasn't legal, the First Minister is fast running out of options. I mean, there are no options, really. If there's no legal referendum, how can she have a referendum? So it's just not possible to have one that's legal.
Yeah.
So I think there is that cartoon of her painting herself into a corner with the yellow thing. It feels more and more.
They always have to redo that and add more problems, though, because they always have to add more and more. And
right. Okay. That's quite good. Please keep your comments coming in.
Yes.
We do have a campaign against the national newspaper. We don't believe that they should be publishing anti-English hate. If you would like to sign that, please go to our website. It's right up the top there. Please support it. It's a petition. We're at 5,500 signatures so far. So everything helps. So if you can help us put pressure on them, then your signature might be the one that makes the difference.
Yes.
Right, moving on. In a moment, David is going to talk about London-based commentators not knowing anything about what is going up here.
And don't forget, we've got Zoomer of the Week coming up as well, so stay tuned.
Highlight of the week.
Right, okay. David, you're up. Now, I'm just going to warn you, I only have 2 of the clips you mentioned.
No problem. That's fine. Okay, I'll let this whenever I say if you've got it, just let me know. Okay, so this week I've noticed that English-based political commentators, there's a tendency to call them London-based, but in reality, a lot of these shows are now filmed in Salford, believe it or not. Certainly BBC.
Oh, yes. But isn't it like a London mindset?
For sure. Very much so, because most of the interviewers have the classic, home counties accents. Anyway, so and a couple of times this week, I've noticed that these guys, the English political commentators, fall straight into the SNP's trap. Now, I make a habit of watching every political show. I record them and watch them, because that's how boring I am. But this week, there have been senior SNP figures interviewed on each of the main shows, which are Politics Today with Joe Coburn, Newsnight, obviously, and Sophie Ridge has a show on a Sunday morning. They're what I would consider the main political shows now. Now, this week, I've been struck by how poorly briefed and how lacking in the taste for the jugular, if you like, each of the interviewers has been. So, for example, earlier on Sunday, Nicola Sturgeon was interviewed by Sophie Ridge, and there was some okay question. It wasn't bad. She's quite, tenacious, Sophie, at times. She's a good interviewer. But one thing that she asked Sturgeon about was NATO, and particularly an independent Scotland, talking scenarios here. Would an independent Scotland want to remain part of NATO? And if so, would an independent Scotland retain a nuclear deterrent, which of course is a hot topic among the SNP? Now, in reply, this gave the, I don't know if you've got this. Have you got this clip, Mark?
Well, this is the one I don't have.
All right,
The
no,
other ones-
I'll talk you through it. So, in reply to this, will Scotland retain a nuclear capability? The First Minister, of course, giggled naturally and said, "Oh, you're making the assumption that the SNP government, the SNP would be the party of government in independent Scotland. But can I just state that we are a non-nuclear party?" And all this complete nonsense. Now, what Sophie Ridge could have done is to follow up by saying, this is hardly a party political issue. You've got Putin sitting in Moscow, literally as we speak, rewriting the map of Europe. And the only reason that he's not in Poland right now is because they have a nuclear capability. So no, that wasn't asked. So she could have said, look, isn't it crucial that we in the UK firstly retain our borders and secondly retain our nuclear capabilities? But it's very disappointed. She just sort of said, oh, okay, then thanks. So what do you think? I mean, what's your feeling about an issue like the nuclear deterrent guys in Scotland?
I mean, Nicola Sturgeon, she wants Indie Scotland to join NATO, which is, as my understanding is, it's a nuclear family, as it were.
Yeah.
They've all got nuclear weapons as a deterrent. I mean, what I don't understand is why Alan Smith couldn't get to the bottom of the issue and solve it for their lawyers. I mean, Alan Smith was over there, negotiating away, but I just couldn't get it over the line. Pitiful, absolutely pitiful. But you're right in saying, it's we're going to cast aside our nuclear deterrent and join NATO, which is a nuclear family. It doesn't comprehend.
Well, I think it's just one of these things, isn't it? It's all things to all people.
Yes.
You can leave the UK, but they'll still pay pensions. I mean,
Absolutely.
This is the kind of, I think what's that, Orwell said in doublespeak was that the idea of having two completely contrary ideas in your mind at the same time and still being able to function as a human. And that's, I mean, this pension thing and this NATO thing are clear examples of Orwell's teachings. It's not 1984, not supposed to be a manual. It's supposed to be a warning, right? So you don't read it and go, doublespeak. Well,
Quite indeed.
I can have two ideas that are completely contrary in my mind, and I can put them out. I mean, okay, be serious. And that's the thing. But the problem here is, I think what David's saying is that the commentators aren't picking up on these things enough. And it's not just the commentator. You have to realize in these shows that they have a team of people working for them. You see a picture of Piers Morgan's team there on his new show. There's like 30 people working on it. Right? And that's all kinds of researchers, people organising all kinds of stuff. But the big part of that is research, and they should know these issues, and they should have the questions ready for them. You should say, but you keep saying about this NATO thing, but how that just doesn't work. And they need to have some bite. They treat her with kid gloves most of the time.
Absolutely. Well, but the second example, sadly, is worse. Do you have the video of when Drew Henry appeared on Politics Today?
Yes, I have that one. So let me just. That's not the Kate Forbes one.
Let's watch this.
No, that's not the Kate Forbes one. That's the one with.
Let me just get that then. Okay, just give me a second.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Is it Tobias? That one?
That's him. That's the one.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let's put this on.
Government over the past 15 years or so, they've made it very clear at every single election that they want independence. That is what they are about, and they want that second referendum. It's not sustainable for Boris Johnson and a Conservative government to keep saying no.
Well, this is the big question as to whether people support and vote for the SNP because they like the idea of the SNP running Scottish Parliament, running councils and so forth, versus actually tearing itself away from the union itself. And as we saw in the last referendum, actually, that's a bigger question. And I think if another referendum was held, you'd actually see more people saying, fine, I like what the SNP might be doing in Scotland, but I don't want to actually lose being part of the United Kingdom.
It's the Brexit argument all over again, isn't it?
Absolutely right. I mean, to me, that's just pitiful. For a start, she's saying they do have a mandate, don't they, Tobias? And he's saying, well, I'm nodding. And then he says, well, maybe people like what the SNP are doing. Let me tell you, Tobias, nobody likes what the SNP is doing. Not one single. People in Scotland vote SNP despite the record, not because of it. So and the idea that you can say, well, obviously, it's, well, did they really want to?
Well, the question is, why is he on there talking? Why is he on there talking about it? It should be someone who's properly briefed about it, and who can actually say, 100%. Who can say, here's the things. I've been reading the majority. That's what you should be saying, and this is what they say. And the other day, I heard David and Niall, and they were saying that this is it's a ferry disaster, is a disaster, and so on. And I was listening to that Mark Devlin guy, and there's no path to a second referendum, right?
Yes,
that's the start. That's the starting point. There is no path to a second referendum. So, let's move on.
So very, very disappointed. So the third one was last night on Newsnight when Kate Forbes was ruled out. So let's have a listen to Kate Forbes being interviewed about the ferries fiasco. And this is her summary.
Okay, here we go.
This has not been the finest error in the Scottish Government's history. Of that, there is no doubt. Lessons have been learned. Audit Scotland is clear that some of those lessons have already been implemented, not least in the most recent procurement exercise. But these two vessels are important, and if we hadn't taken the steps that we have taken, those vessels wouldn't be there. There wouldn't be 400 jobs at Ferguson.
400.
And the last remaining commercial shipbuilding yard on the Clyde would not exist.
So there's the ever-inflating job number. Starts at 300, it goes to 400. I mean, you can't trust these folk.
Absolutely, but the really key point there is, in the same sentence, Kate Forbes, the Finance Secretary, said, oh yes, lessons have been learned and those lessons have been implemented in the procurement of our two newest ferries, but the important thing is we've kept shipbuilding on the Clyde. What she didn't point out, and what the presenter failed to pick up, was the procurement of the two new ferries has been given to a shipyard in Turkey. So,
precisely.
Guys, I mean, this
Precisely,
is just ridiculous.
David.
You're saying, oh, it's great, we've saved these jobs. And yes, we've learned all these lessons for the two new ferries, which are being done by our friends in Turkey. I mean, goodness me, how difficult is that to research? So very disappointing. So I really would like to see a drastic improvement in the way that these guys stand up to and question more robustly SNP, because at the moment they're just being given the opportunity to provide a monologue with their own stuff in it. Yeah.
Sorry. So how important are these actual vessels? She says they're very, very important, these vessels, and yet we've just allowed them to be like, what, 4 or 5 years late, over budget. I mean, how important are they really? I mean, they're important to the islanders. I was just over that. But it's clearly not important to the SNP if they've let them just rot and rust sitting there. It's complete hogwash.
Absolutely right. So poor.
Well, I think the thing is, there used to be the programs like I mean, it's a long time ago, Hard Talk, and these kind of like hard-boiled type of interviews. And I thought you always see whenever there's a Conservative or maybe even a Labour person on there, sometimes that they'll go for them. They just really go for them, and we don't see that. I think too many of them are in the thrall of the idea that they can use Nicola Sturgeon as a way to fight back against Brexit or Boris or something like that. That nice Nicola Sturgeon is going to, say the things that ineffective Keir Starmer can't against that horrible bad Boris. That's the feeling. And at a certain point, hopefully, maybe Labour gets a better front man, or maybe they just accept, okay, Labour's actually going somewhere, so they change side, and then Sturgeon's not important to them anymore. But it's kind of sickening to see that. We see that, like, I remember I had a thing, it was, what's his name? Piers Morgan again, and he was like, oh, she's so great, talking about, against Brexit and all this type of stuff. And you're just like, no, that's nonsense.
Absolutely right.
Really
great
nonsense.
There for Johnny Scott. She forgot to mention the levers of power they have, how much interviews paid for their ignorance.
It's very, very disappointing.
Well, the thing is, these people are supposed to be paid, and supposed to be working on our behalf to get answers from these people, and they should be harsh on them, because it should be easy pickings in the SNP case, but they still indulge them with this idea that there's going to be a second referendum. That thing with Tobias Elwood and the Conservative Party just as bad, and we'll come to this a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Indulging the idea that there's going to be a second referendum, and that from that defeatist point of view, so many bad things happened. There's a fear of the SNP, and I think we, from our experience, we believe that they're a bit of a paper tiger. So, at some point, maybe they will wake up and the tide will turn. Oh, let's hope for, but that's part of our mission is to help that along by criticising. So I think it's some pretty good points there, David. Actually, we're going to move on to the best part of the week. It's coming. It is. We're going to go for the Zoomer of the week. Now, I actually have David down first, but I think we should have Niall should be first.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You think I should be first? Oh, well, thank you very much. So, I mean, my one is
Dropped you in
it's
it.
really quite a short one. So, my Zoomer of the week is a woman called Sally Mcdonald, head of comms at the SNP, or so we are to believe. That's what she had in her Twitter bio before it was mysteriously deleted. So she had the incredible goal, and I'm sure you've already heard this story, and you'll be wondering. She posted a picture in front of the SNP battle bus. And what did she say? All aboard. We'll all aboard the gravy bus.
Oh, dear me.
Yes.
And I mean, it just took the breath right out of me, just like that. It's unbelievable. I mean, what an amazing example of saying the quiet part out loud. And I'm serious about this. The SNP are the party of cranks and wannabe career politicians. They're not there to make a difference. They're there to take a wage, and a really big one at that. And the principles are they're for sale to the highest bidder. Hence the gravy bus. That's what I took from that. Tell me in the comments, guys. Tell me if I'm right. It's unbelievable. And did you bring it up, Mark? You got the picture of this?
Yeah, it was already up. We already put it up. We're just cycling through some articles about it. But actually, did you see that there were some other things? This Aaron, who's a friend of the show, he and Agent P, who is not a woman, called Pauline, they posted these tweets that this lady Sally had posted. Historic tweets. Basically calling people all kinds of names and
stuff that we would never even think about saying on this podcast.
No, and using the words that are just very unpleasant, with like Janie Godley level of dodgy tweets, and we still haven't heard much about that actually since it's come out.
Well, I mean, I'm going to do the unthinkable again and come to this woman's defence after just tirading on her. So, I mean, those tweets she posted, what 2012, right? The woman, she's already a young woman. What she was like 10 years ago. I mean, come on. She must have been a kid in her teens.
Yeah, but that's not the issue. Actually, I think the issue is that she's a candidate for a national party, and in an election, she should be able to, or the party should have proper vetting processes, and should be competent enough to look through all their social media. Yep. We know what it's like for the National and other newspapers and people interested. Certain journalists who want to rake through your social media bins, as it were, and find out what you've been discarding, what you've been saying over the years, and it's very important to sanitize that, I suppose, before you start. And it shows that they don't actually care about that. They don't care that she had these historic tweets. They don't care that she said there's a gravy bus thing, which is, as Niall says, is speaking the truth out loud, the quiet part out loud.
Yep. Hiding in plain sight and all that. Yep. Dreadful.
It's quite a shocker. Now, just even I have this thing here as well. This guy as well, another one here. There's Glasgow Nat Council claims he's not paid enough after only attending half his committee meetings.
Yes, a Rastafarian married to SNP MSP, if my memory recalls. Just absolutely galling, I think for your requisites to be a councillor is you need to show up for 4 meetings over the course of a year, a 12-month period. If this guy can't make 4 meetings over a year, then woe betide us. And he wants paid more. Andy wants paid more. He's woefully underpaid.
Oh, he's not on the gravy
come on.
bus. He's not. That's the thing. He needs to get on the gravy bus.
Well, maybe
And,
go
you
on
know,
at
have
the
a good-
back of the gravy bus. They need to be near the front of the gravy bus. You're getting a wee bit gravy at the back, but really, it's the front of the bus you need to be.
Is the bus going through the gravy, or is the bus making the gravy? The bus is. It's difficult
No,
to tell.
me, you, Mark, and David, we're all making the gravy,
Yep.
and they're taking the gravy from us. And
Using it to run the bus.
We're reusing
Yep.
this image. We need to go off this metaphor,
goodness
really.
me.
But,
Right, that's fine.
moving
Great,
on.
well done. The gravy bus rolls on, and next up is going to be David.
Okay, cool. Okay, no. So in a break from tradition, my nomination for Zoomer of the Week is for once not an SNP senior figure. Usually it is, I know. But my Zoomer of the Week nomination is Scottish Conservative Party leader Douglas Ross. And this is because Douglas has led a truly dismal local election campaign in which he has appeared to be as weak as London Lager. He is not content with calling for Boris Johnson to resign and then changing his mind and assuring us that Boris is in fact fit to lead the party and to be Prime Minister after all. Ross has shown zero ambition other than desperation to hold on to second place behind the SNP. But just like last year, and their campaigns have been very, very similar in the 2 years, last year and this one, in the final days of campaigning, their social media output has been truly bizarre. One yesterday said, and I quote here, this is a Scottish Conservative Party official tweet, and I quote, "If pro-UK voters unite, just like last year, we can beat the SNP and deliver on your local priorities." Now, excuse me, Douglas, but last year, as we all remember, the Scottish Conservatives spent the last 4 weeks of the campaign shrieking at the electorate not to vote for All for Unity when it looked like we might beat some of their candidates.
Absolutely.
So where was the pro-UK sentiment there? Their campaign last year was both votes Tory, although they knew this would mean wasting at least one of the 2 votes. So the idea that the Scottish Conservatives helped pro-UK voters to unite last year, frankly, is a lie worthy of Nicola Sturgeon. So my nomination is none other than the hapless, the perennially disappointing, and the no doubt soon to be replaced Douglas Ross.
It's a bit of a shocker. You know, we have no love for Douglas Ross on the show. His hokey cokey act with Boris Johnson was really not acceptable to anyone. You know, it was a mess of his own making. He put his left foot into the crap, and then he put his right foot into the crap. Then he put his hands in the crap, and he pulled them back out, and the whole thing, he just ended up in crap. That's what it is. There's no need to put your hands into anything. You could just have stood by the side, kept your mouth shut.
Keep your hands clean, more to the point, yeah.
Yes, that's right. And, you know, when all the knives were in Boris' back, he could maybe stand up and say, all right, okay, well, maybe I kind of agree with that. But, you know, that's not what happened. So, very, very, you know, very disloyal, ineffective, and so on. And then he still continues with this thing. It's here it is here yesterday. Yeah. Voters can put a final nail in the coffin of a new referendum, says Scott's Tory leader. Oh my God, how many times do we have to tell you? Don't
the
make
coffin is already nailed shut.
Yes, the coffin, exactly. It's, you know, they keep resurrecting it and using it as a thing to try and get voters, you know, scare voters. You know, if we don't nail this coffin shut, the ghost of referendum is going to come up and haunt us. No, it's not. It's dead.
Quite right. It's like you're hanging about in a graveyard saying he's still dead. You know, that bloke who died 3 years ago, he's still dead. I thought I mentioned that.
And I think I said
brilliant.
And this was from a few months ago. I spoke to us soon. It's not vote Tory to stop an SNP referendum. It's a vote for the SNP is a vote for a referendum that won't happen. Vote Scott Tories or Labour or whoever it is for local services. Get it right. Yes. And that's the thing. It's like, Dougie, you know, if you just listen to us, and we know these things. That's
absolutely
the thing.
Right.
There's 3 brains here, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with these Douglas and his advisors is they are out of step with the local grassroots and don't seem to have very much political understanding.
Absolutely.
I see some love for Stephen Kerr in the comments.
Yeah.
So we've been keeping an eye on Stephen Kerr as well. I mean, I didn't see Douglas Ross being replaced, but it's all dependent on the election results that we don't know tonight.
Yeah, and it depends a little bit, and it depends a lot on how they come out the gate next. But we really do need a bit more. Stop being so scared of being called a branch office, and stop trying to attract people that are not going to come to the party, and while at the same time dismaying and disillusioning and demoralising the actual core
people
followers.
He wants to vote for him, exactly.
Right. Okay. Coming up, my choice. Right. I'm just going to keep this short because we're running out of time. My thing. It's the thing. It bugs me all the time. It's people who come to this country and then they become SNP members and try and break it up. I think it's really something.
It's outrageous, I know. Outrageous.
I
know why would you be annoyed. I know why you'd be annoyed, of course.
I mean, I lived in Japan for 18 years, and I never thought any moment that I would try and break up, Japan. I didn't even think about it. And then lived in America the same. If you go to America and you decided that you were going to, I'm for, secession of Texas, people are like, you're not, get out. You wouldn't even let you in, And there's this idea of the new Scots. These people who are coming in and they can get, they seem to think that they have a right to immediately try and break up the country. And I was watching this thing. I don't know if I got it. Hold on, let me just try and find it here. It's an interview with this. It was on last night actually about this refugees who can vote. Now this lady, and she's come from Ukraine, and
It's really important because it shows decision makers and politicians
not this person,
that young
next
people
one,
do
just come up.
genuinely care about the issues that they are making decisions on.
It's also the first council election that refugees can vote in too. 18-year-old Varvara settled in Montrose about a month ago after fleeing the war in Ukraine. She's excited to cast her vote, but says for many Ukrainian refugees, it's still too soon.
And
so she says it's too soon.
She's been in the country for less than a month or a month.
No, I know, it's outrageous.
I mean, how is that even possible to get a vote for that? And there's a whole bunch of these things here, and this is quite a revealing tweet here. We have this guy says, most encouraging canvassing session I've ever had today in Edinburgh's Grassmarket. Spoke with lots of #New Scots and EU voters who are not only registered to vote for the first time, but absolutely fired up to vote SNP.
Of course they are.
It's absolutely shocking. And so my thing is for these people, I don't think you should be, I've been an immigrant. I know what it is. It's to be, but at least, say it's 3 years, 5 years, 10, make some actual real rules instead of just, giving it to anyone. Anyway.
Isn't that the truth, Heavenly Malbec? We must be a laughing stock to others.
Absolutely. I can't believe
it. It's so ridiculous.
Right, okay, Niall, it's going to be your turn this week to choose.
Oh, is it my turn?
You can choose your own if you like.
You know what? I'm going to give Douglas Ross a bye, and it's going to be you, Mark. I think it's outrageous that we've got people that are in this country for less than a month deciding whether or not to break up a 300-year-old country union.
Crazy.
It's outrageous.
Quite right. Well said.
Well
done,
crazy.
Mark.
Right. Well, I'm conscious we're running a little bit over time. Big thanks to Mary, who's going to come on in a second. Here we go, for doing all the chats. How have you been going on there?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I've been kept very busy tonight. Lots of great
you're muted. Sorry. There you go.
Oh, sorry.
Right, try again.
Good evening, everyone. I've been kept very busy tonight with lots of great comments. Hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to all your comments next week again. Take care.
Right, very good. A big thank you to our donors. Thank you. If you would like to donate, please go to majority.scot. website, and everything helps, as we said earlier on. And big thank you to our friends at United Against Separation and UK Union Voice for helping distribute this on their Facebook pages. I'm going to leave you with the thought of the week, which is last week's thought of the week. I don't know. That's a bit confusing. How did that happen?
It was a really good one, though, last week, though.
All right,
so
okay,
we
here
can
we go.
redo it.
Yeah, I've got it. Actually, no. Stop deluding yourself that you can get to socialism or libertarianism or any other ism by voting for nationalism. All you get when you vote for nationalism is more nationalism. So please break the cycle.
Yes.
So, how did that go, guys? You think it was okay tonight?
Well, I think it was a great show. I hope everyone else agrees. And you know, it has been quite a hard journey with these elections, but we'll soon find out what the results are. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and I hope you have a great
thanks,
evening.
guys. We know that some of you want to go and watch a football match starting about now, so we'll let you go.
Well,
thanks for all the
that's it.
comments.
We're only 1 minute over, so it's great. Thank you all for watching. Who's on mute? Thank you all for watching. We will see you again next week at 7 p.m. Please tell your friends, tell everyone you can that this is not Scotland's #1 anti-national show. We cover the topics no one else does.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you next week, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.